Alright, what happened to all the interesting characters in video games? Have you noticed that? A lot of the really fun and interesting characters seem to just no longer exist in gaming. Their numbers have dwindled to only a small handful. The rest are just bland, copy and paste, cookie cutter characters that are mostly blocks of wood. And this trend of wooden characters started with the 7th generation of game systems. In the 3rd and 4th generation, they really couldn't display the characters' personalities, maybe through idle animations like when Sonic would tap his foot and look annoyed. Game cartridges just didn't hold the information needed and the hardware couldn't process that kind of information. In RPGs, things were displayed in text, so it kinda had to be written like a book for you to understand the emotion, and the music had to reflect the tone, like sad music playing when a character was sad. But in the 5th generation, when we had the transition to CDs and could have voice acting and cutscenes, allowed us to see and hear the emotions of the characters. Sure, the voice acting wasn't the best, but the characters had personality and had emotions, like X at the end of Mega Man X4, who expressed genuine concern of what would happen to him if he ever turned Maverick. Even when there was no voice acting, they still managed to give the character a personality, like Crash Bandicoot, who through body motion showed off how much of a goofball he is. Or Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, who was just a cocky son of a bitch that didn't give a shit. And you could see through his body language and by reading the text and how it was written that he was either being arrogant, sad, or under Sephiroth's control. Even games on the N64, which were cartridges and those didn't hold much information either, the characters had voices and personality, like Conker for example, who was a wisecracking lecherous drunkard. Then the 6th generation came in and optical media was able to hold a lot more data and allowed for a lot more frequent use of cutscenes and voice acting. Love him or hate him, Titus from Final Fantasy X had a personality, and even though his annoying laugh will live on forever in our memories, he did have a personality. Jack had a personality in the 2nd and 3rd games, Daxter had a personality in all 3 of them, and they were genuinely interesting and fun characters. Same with Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper and his cast of characters. Then we got into the 7th generation and all that went out the window. Sure, we have Nathan Drake and Bayonetta, who are probably the 2 best characters to come from the 7th gen systems, but the rest are so boring and it's spilling over into the 8th generation now. And it's mostly the male character that's the boring one, like Aiden Pierce from Watch Dogs. Holy crap, was he the most boring of boring white bread. All we have now are these boring guys with gruff voices who talk in hushed tones, and they have no personality. Even Solid Snake, who's got a gruff voice and talks sorta low-key, has a personality, but he's a product of the 3rd generation who upon the 5th, we were able to see his personality fully. And it's not just male characters that are boring. Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII was boring and monotone, and she was the main character. And they even screwed up Cloud by making him a boring emo kid with that Final Fantasy VII movie. But I think that after the events of Final Fantasy VII, it can be chalked up to a post-traumatic stress disorder. And you may want to say that who cares? Story is unimportant and it's all about gameplay. To which I say, go back to your crap-a-duty multiplayer cockfest. Story does matter in games that are story-driven, and if you want games to be considered an art form, then story does indeed matter. Because storytelling is an art form, and video games incorporate many art forms into one. I've covered this in my Our Video Games art video and my rant about story versus gameplay. It's hard to play a story when the characters are pretty much all the same and have no personality. They only have 2 modes, melancholy and rage. They have no sense of humor and they show no happiness. Even at the end of the game, when they finally destroyed their enemy and got revenge, they're still angry and their boring personality doesn't make it feel like you've concluded their odyssey. Charismatic characters like Nathan Drake or Sonic are becoming far and few between, opting for bland and boring characters or changing characters, like Lara Croft becoming more of an emotional character like she is in the recent reboot series than the more badass character she used to be in the PlayStation 1 era. I'm not saying that the new Lara Croft is boring, but there is a huge contrast between the original PlayStation and the current one, which is why I like the Doom Marine from the new Doom. He's such an awesome character to come out this generation. While a silent protagonist, he's got a lot of personality that's pantomimed. When being told how to carefully disable the Argent energy filters without damaging them, he just bashes it to pieces. And when removing the last one, he's urged to do it carefully. He stops, only to think about how to damage it and punches his fist through it. He also backs up the Mars facility's AI just so it could live on when he goes to destroy it, and he does this without being told to do so. He plays with the Doomarine figures and even fist bumps one, and when he dies in lava he gives the Terminator 2 thumbs up, showing a humorous side. You know that the forces of hell are scared of this guy, and you can see the fear and pain in their eyes as the Doomarine literally rips and tears through them. Especially because the backstory of the Doomarine, which you find on tablets in hell, paints him as a terrifying force of nature that's not to be messed with. He proves that he's the smartest guy in the room when the guy trying to harness the Argent energy from hell shows that he really doesn't know what he's dealing with. Other times we get characters that are blocks of wood in single player games though. Silent protagonists like Link from the Legend of Zelda series, he's supposed to be a link to the player, yeah, I get it, by saying that the character on screen is your in-game avatar. But the thing is, that's a single player game. I'm not interacting with real people. It's different from playing World of Warcraft where I'm actually interacting with actual people and can roleplay a character and play with other people that can talk back to me. And saying that a character in a single player game is your avatar is a rather cheap way of saying that they didn't want to write a character's actual personality. I'd much rather have a character that's a cocky and annoying son of a bitch than a character that's like Gordon Freeman. Yeah, I said it. At least I would have a reason to hate him. Like Titus from Final Fantasy X. He at least made me feel something. When the character is supposed to represent me, but they're a silent protagonist, I find it hard to play the game, because I can't talk to the characters in-game. They're not real. I'm not able to give them a response that I would give, or any response at all. It's a matter of being told what to do and nodding in agreement, even though I'd rather tell the character to piss off. Because I'm talking to a screen, a flat surface. I'm not really interacting with the characters on screen. It's on par with those people who shout at the TV when a character in a movie or TV show is about to do something really stupid. Why make a character a silent protagonist or a boring character like Aiden Pierce? Because I'm not gonna care about them or their journey. Say what you want about Sonic Lost World or Sonic Boom: The Rise of Lyric, but in both those games we get to see Sonic face the consequences of his actions, which allows for character development, especially in Lost World where we see his shoot first, ask questions later personality get punished twice. Once for kicking the shell from Eggman that was keeping the bad guys in line, and again when the bad guys kidnapped Tails. That allows for a character development, because Sonic has a personality. That personality comes with flaws for the character to overcome. The Doomarine is probably the best silent protagonist ever, because he has a personality that's shown through his body language, and he's thinking what the player is thinking, which is, fuck this shit, let's kill some demons. Characters like Nathan Drake are relatable because he's the everyman. He cracks jokes, and at times you and him are thinking the same thing when playing the game, and that's what I think makes a good character, having them think what the player is thinking by putting that character in a situation that would generate that response. That way the player cares enough to see that character through to the end.